Welcome to Soccer Talk, a podcast about soccer, mostly in Iowa, presented by Kick It Forward. Kick It Forward is a positive disruptor to the Iowa soccer community.
Thanks to our sponsors, Scott Insurance Services and Michael Keener, Attorney at Law. You need legal help, you need insurance help, those are the two to contact.
That's right. Welcome to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. Ben Brackett here with my good buddy and co-host, Blake Siberz. Blake, what's up, dude?
Hey, Ben, doing well today. So far, so good.
Yeah, we've been busy with the old Kick It Forward activities in the past few days, haven't we? Just mini pitches all over the place, podcasting all over the place.
Yeah, it's been fun times. Busy, but fun.
Well, before we get into today's interview, let's just touch on what we touched on in the end of our last episode, which was the announcement of the Pleasant Hill mini pitch, which we're really excited about. Pleasant Hill, Sunrise Park there in, I don't know, Blake knows the location better because he's an East Sider, but we're really excited that that'll be installed here the first part of July, and people will be playing before we know it.
Yeah, we're obviously really excited about it. Got great support from the Pleasant Hill community, and I don't know, it might be my favorite one because it's just down the road.
Yeah, shout out to Mayor. I'm not going to say her name correctly. Kurovsky?
Sarah.
Yeah.
Mayor
shout
Sarah.
out to the mayor of Pleasant Hill, soccer player herself. That I think her support was vital. I mean, the whole group was pretty supportive of it, though, right?
Yeah, and if anybody wants to kind of watch the city council approval, go to our YouTube page. That's a good plug, isn't it, Ben?
It is, yeah. Great YouTube page that Blake's been curating. And then, don't forget to follow us on social media. All those tags, so we won't waste our breath on that. We're going to jump into an interview here with Joe Berger, who, in addition to being a former Soccer South coach and Drake soccer assistant, spending a lot of time in the Des Moines community, he's now moved on and is the executive director of the Kansas Soccer Association. So we thought it'd be interesting to kind of follow up on our Dan Cataldi interview, have a chat with Joe and see how things are a little bit different maybe in Kansas. And then next week, we're going to have a chat with our old buddy Casey Mann, who is the executive director in Nebraska.
Yeah, and hopefully our listeners will be able to listen and kind of compare and contrast the different challenges, the different goals, how things work outside of Iowa, but just next door as well.
Yeah, and we had a little genius idea. I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks down the road, we'll have a little roundtable with all three of them and maybe talk about some of the differences in person. Should be cool.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get to Joe Berger. Well, welcome, Joe Berger. Joe, how are you today?
I'm good. It's a sunny day down here in Kansas City, so I can't complain.
It's hot as Hades up here in Des Moines.
Yeah, it's going to be 90 plus with a heat index about 95, 96. So it's steaming up for sure. We had some storms last night, so the humidity is going to score. It's going to be the first sticky day I've had in a long time since coming down from Minnesota. I hadn't had many of these days, so
I bet
it's going to be interesting.
Well, that's funny.
It's amazing. Sorry, Ben.
Go ahead.
I would say it's amazing just 3 hours from Des Moines to Kansas City how much the temperature can differ sometimes.
And you forget about it. You just forget about how it is that the humidity is here. And when I was at the JUCO, I remember our trainer telling our kids to take 4 T-shirts because it was 100% humidity and, 90 some degrees. And the trainer would tell the kids to change their T-shirt every 15 minutes because the water wouldn't go anywhere. It would just stick in their cotton T-shirt. So, yeah, I forgot about all this and what it feels like. And being a suit, I don't know if I like how I have to dress to go to work because it's a little bit more sticky than I used to. So.
Well, it's funny that you bring up the weather because you're talking to our resident meteorologist down here, old Blake Siberz.
I was just going to say, Ben, like as much as people probably don't want to hear about our conversation about the weather, it ties into who we are a little bit.
It absolutely does. But so, and I'm sure you've listened to most of our podcasts, right, Joe?
Yes.
So you know what's coming up
Yep.
shortly.
Yep.
Are you
So
ready?
I sure do.
First question always, Joe, is this your first podcast you've been on?
My first podcast, but not my first interviews. I was interviewed a lot when I was in South Dakota on the local news. I was big news there, I guess, for a while. So, but yes, first podcast for sure.
That's all right. So I love it, Ben. We're gonna grill him big time
For sure.
Well, I think Ben, then go ahead. I mean, Joe's kind of alluded to kind of where we want to begin a little bit there with the South Dakota and the JUCO and whatnot. But
yeah, and then even just talking about before we were on the call, talking about his Soccer South days. So Joe, we just kind of like to give everybody a chance to walk us through your origin story. Talk about how you got into soccer, maybe like, you know, your days as a player and how you transitioned to coaching, and then obviously now where you're at in the executive director role.
Yeah, so pretty interesting story. I started late. I didn't start playing till I was 11 because I had an older cousin and he would beat me up in the backyard, kicking me in the shin a lot. So I had to survive, and then I got in the league and I was pretty good. And this is way back when you formed your competitive teams where a dad just picked the 15 best guys out of the rec league and put a team together and go. So that was a while ago.
Where'd you grow up, Joe?
I'm from Kansas City. I grew up in the Lee Summit area of Kansas City, so the southeast suburbs.
Okay.
Greenwood, Missouri, more specifically.
So it's like you're coming back home now.
I'm home, yeah. So I came back home after my coaching stint. I played college for Sean Holmes at Baker University for 2 years, and then transferred to UMKC. And then was the assistant soccer coach there for 4 years under a guy named Mike Brown. Coached the C team at Liberty High School in Kansas City, Missouri to an undefeated season for a year. And then ended up at Southwest Missouri State for 2 years because I called John Leamy asking for camp brochures. And he was asking what I was going to do. And I said, I'd like to get back into college coaching. So ended up there.
Hey, Joe, let me interrupt. What year were you at Missouri State? Or Southwest Missouri State?
Yeah, so I was there 99 and 2000.
So
I coached Mark Moterson.
Post-Mark Moterson days.
Mark Moterson, yep, he was there. He was a sophomore and a junior.
Okay.
With a bunch of Kansas City
So that's
guys.
when you guys were nationally ranked at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were number 2 behind Stanford. We were undefeated. And we were seeded number 8 in the NCAA tournaments, and they sent us to UAB to play because the Cooper Sports Complex had a couple sprinkler issues for the facility. So we were seeded and went on the road. It was a magical year. Like, we would be down 2 goals and come back and win a game. It was 1999 was pretty special. You know, we got it right. And yeah, it was pretty fun. But like a lot of names that probably Iowa people don't know, but it was mostly St. Louis and Kansas City guys, and they were
the guy? Was it Chris Brunt?
Chris Brunt, yeah, he was a sophomore when I was there, sophomore and a junior as well. Kind of went, but we had a goal scorer from St. Louis named Mike Williams who scored a ton of goals. It was just a good, solid team that the chemistry was right, and went on a special run, but we lost 3-2 to UAB in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So, but yeah,
that's did you guys come up your time to play Drake there next to the tennis center? I mean, you guys were in the same conference, correct?
Yes, no. We were in the same conference, but Drake came to us. So Drake came to us in 99, and we played at the tennis center in 2000. Yes. Yeah.
I remember those days, Ben, do you? I mean, we'd go down there and
Absolutely.
have to be an afternoon game. And
yeah. And then from Missouri State, I went and started the program at Barton County Community College, and had my second year. We had another magical year where we made it to the top 8 of JUCO. We actually were 1-3-1, and then reeled off 14 undefeated games and won our region 1-0 over Johnson County, and won a shootout in the regional final against East Central and St. Louis, and we find ourselves in Tyler, Texas. So just another situation where the kids, the chemistry found its way, and we were winning ugly and had our moments, but it was special time. And then from Barton County, I made my way to Drake for the 6 years in Iowa, to be with Sean Holmes, reunited with my former coach.
What was that like? Was that something where you got the phone call from him, or you were just out trolling for a job and you gave him a shout?
Well, we were talking. So I was the coach of the Kansas 88 ODP team. And he was recruiting Garrett Webb, Luke Gorsica, Michael Thomas. He was coaching several kids off that team. And then the assistant was moving on, and he said, "Hey, Joe, do you want to come up here and come work with me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to get back to D1." So it was a phone call, but it was kind of mutual connections, and probably him understanding that I had some relationship with some guys coming in, and it was just maybe like a perfect storm where it worked out, where we could reunite. So I thought it was good. Great 6 years at Drake, for sure.
That was when you got to coach old Blake Siberz.
I did.
Lucky man.
I mean, Blake was the toughest guy on the team most days. He could
Best
kick the
technical
ball.
player.
If you call kicking the ball really far technical, yes, he was good at that. But you loved Blake because he wouldn't duck out of a challenge. Like, me and Coach Holmes would joke, and here we go, Blake is crunching somebody. And if he didn't crunch him, if he didn't crunch him, he was trying to chase him, and I don't know if he would catch him if he got behind him. So he had to keep the game in front of him a little bit. So it was.
I always loved playing with Blake.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I remember a heartbreaking moment for Blake too. I believe Blake was a senior year, and we were at Bradley, and it was the semifinals, and it went to a shootout and all that stuff, and it was just heartbreaking.
Did Blake miss?
I did.
Oh no! Did goalie save it, or did you miss the goal?
Oh, goalie saved it.
Which is worse?
But it was kind of a duff, wasn't it, Blake? Like you kicked the ground, kicked the ball.
It wasn't the best penalty.
I mean, but what made the moment, not the kick that made the moment so real for me, was Blake's reaction about how devastated he was and how much it meant to him, and that he was willing to take it. And, and you just saw what college soccer and Drake soccer meant to him in that moment. And that was a pure moment that always stayed with me. It wasn't the kick. It was how he reacted and go, man, it was important, and how he felt, and just saw all the raw emotion come pouring out. And it was
Drake's
pretty
a bulldog.
moving.
He bleeds blue.
Well, but it was all, you could see, like, how do I want to describe it? You could just see the love for the team, for the opportunity, for everything in that moment, and what it meant to him, because he was, it was crushing, but it was beautiful all at once.
I mean, we talk about that, Ben. Don't often we see these kids that are good enough to play college soccer, and they don't, for all sorts of different reasons. But it's like it's like devastating to us to not see kids. I don't know. We've kind of lived through them a little bit, don't we? Now that we're older, just to not have that opportunity, or not to get those experiences. We talk.
I'm still trying to get over my college career, the end of my competitive playing career. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. It's just unfortunately, back in those days, it was so final, right? when it was over, it was over. It just was done. There was no, there was no extended season. It was just over. When they're graduating and do that, it was do it. And you could just see all the hard, I mean, everybody on the team, like when the kids at the end of every season collapse to the ground, you go, man, this was special. This group was special. And it's all of them that you ever coach, but just how quick everything rotates around and the turnover in the teams. And
it must be hard from a coaching standpoint to see that every year. You just go, like every year you bond with this group, and then part of them leaves and you start over.
Right. And then you ingratiate a new group. I mean, it's just the turnover. It's the turnover. And it's just like, man, I get it, but it's always hard because of the relationship you have, whether it was a positive one or, a tumultuous one. It's just one of those things where you go, man, I still don't want it this end, even though we had our moments and this and that, it's still a relationship, and you hope it continues in some way.
So, and let's kind of elaborate, Joe, when you were in Des Moines at Drake, you brought it up earlier, Soccer South, your Soccer South days. Give us, you coached there a little bit, and just talk about what else you did here in Des Moines soccer-wise.
So basically, I ran the camps for Drake University and had a fun time. But basically, Soccer South, and I did some coaching education. Not a lot, but Soccer South was kind of my baby, given to me by Sean. Him and a bunch of guys put together and wanted to start a rec program. It only went to U12. And then we surrounded ourselves with the likes of Barry Sheridan, some dad coaches, a Drake player would help out, but it was kind of we weren't looking to win state cups. We did everything locally, and we didn't have to win games. We could try to develop and kind of grade kids, but we'd start with our 8s and our 9s and 10s in the little academy, and we put in a system, and we would integrate them on technical nights. Everybody in the club would be there. I mean, we had about 80 kids at the time, and we'd have the 5 or 6 coaches out there with me running it, and it would be great. But then at U12, we just kind of sent them on their way. So we didn't have the stress of winning state cup. We didn't have the stress of trying to recruit players afterwards, but we were kind of a pretty unique group because we had some kids that lived south of Grand, and then we had some of the neighborhood kids, a good diversity mix. And, we were able to have a curriculum and stick to it. And we'd usually start when they were U10 going in the IPSL. I don't know if they call it the IPSL now, but they would start, or U11 start in the IPSL, and we'd start in the second or third group. And by the 12, we always had a group or two in the upper age group. So it was good. We wanted to be technical based. We wanted to teach connecting passes and playing and prioritize technical ability. And so that's what we did. It was pretty special. It's going to be kind of neat to see what Matt Reams does with that group. I know for a long time we tried to bring Soccer West and Soccer South together, and we did in some ways, but not in all the ways. So I think this will be a neat thing for that side of the city.
Cool. So I think after Drake, you go to Bradley, correct?
No, I started a program at South Dakota School of Mines.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So I went to the engineering school, great engineering school at an affordable price. It was pretty neat, good players. We were without a league, kind of like what Coach Holmes is doing with St. Cloud State now. We were searching. We ended up in the GNAC. And after the third year, there was some funding stuff and some different things going on. So Bradley had some turnover. So Jim DeRose said, hey, come out to Bradley. So I spent 2 years at Bradley.
Did Jordan Cadlick take over after you? He was an assistant up there, right?
Yeah, Jordan Cadlick came on as an assistant my last year and did a great job. And then when I left, he stepped up to be the head coach and did a good job. And then he just, I believe, made the personal choice to get out of soccer. And then he yeah, it's doing well. Still in the area, coaching goalies, I believe, and coaching in the club up there. So I think he's doing well and still in the area. So, yeah, so we still have a legacy in that area, which is good. And then went to Bradley for 2 years, and then got the opportunity at Minnesota United to go create kind of or revamp their camp program and be around the pro club and work a little bit with the development academy, in the pre-academy and a couple of the younger age groups. And then to kind of bring the story back around, one of the players that I used to coach at Missouri State, Kansas City guy, and then a couple other guys that I got to know from being in Kansas City, and were on the board of KYSA, and they started throwing out names, and my name came up. And so they said, hey, you should apply for this. So I did. And now I'm back in Kansas City. I think I got into coaching by accident. So when I was at UMKC my senior year, I got in a little bit of trouble and got a yellow card, maybe a red card on an away game. So I got benched for a couple games for kicking somebody. And then we were driving to Chicago from Kansas City in two 16-passenger vans, and the assistant and the head coach had a disagreement. And so after that, the next week, Coach Mike Brown comes in and goes, Joe, the assistant is leaving. Why don't you be my assistant? We can get you a part-time job in purchasing. You can help coach the club team. My club team's here called Voyagers West here in Blue Springs. Will make you some money, and you can help with the recruiting and stuff. So I said, yeah, sure. I didn't know what I wanted to do, being a liberal arts major. So I kind of got into coaching on accident as well. So, it's makes you believe that everybody has a path, and you're just going down it and see what happens next. So we'll see.
Also, talk to us about your new role. That's a good segue to the state of Kansas, and you're the executive director of the state association, correct?
Yeah, so I've kind of come off the field and taken a leadership role for the state of Kansas, trying to make sure that we're offering quality services and products and growing the game here in the state of Kansas. So I'm in charge of creating sponsorship partnerships, organizing State Cup a little bit, but trying to be the leader in the state of growing the game and making sure everything happens. So I'm actually coming off the field a little bit. I've been lucky. I've got a lot of friends here that said if I wanted to coach a session now and then, they'd be more than happy to let me coach. So I might take them up on that. But yeah, so I've kind of taken a new administrative role and growing the game and being the
ambassador for Kansas, also for USU soccer and US soccer. So Joe, we had Dan Cataldi, the executive director for the Iowa Soccer Association. We talked to him recently, and then we're going to also talk to Casey Mann over in Nebraska. Talk to us about how Kansas is going through the COVID-19 pandemic. Where you're at as far.
By the way, that must have been a nice way to start your job.
Yeah, it was. But to be fair, if I jumped into it when I did, I would be dealing with State Cup and all that stuff. And when that stuff went away, I'm really dealing with one issue that has 17 layers instead of 17 one-layer issues in a big event that we're hosting. So I think I got it off a little bit easy, that I'm not running around crazy. I'm just kind of sitting in my office and solving problems and watching what the governor says about opening up and everything. So, yeah, so I think – in a lot of ways, I'm lucky that it happened here, because this week would have been Kansas State Cup and we would have been running around crazy. So, yeah. Yeah. So Blake, tell me your question again. Sorry,
yeah. So that's right. That's all right. So you guys, you canceled State Cup. Where are you guys at on the return to play? Is there certain phases? Kind of who are you guys getting your recommendation? Whose advice are you following? Where are you guys all at with that?
So in Kansas, it kind of went a little bit of a different direction. So the return to play became a little bit political in our legislature. So we were all geared up on our way to get phases in, and then we get to phase 2, where you can start kicking around, having practice, social distancing, and then the governor gave all the authority for reopening the state to the counties. So each county currently is in a different place. So Johnson County is in a different place than Sedgwick County and Wichita, and in a different place in Shawnee County and Topeka. So it's kind of tricking that. So in Wichita, they're more open than we are in Kansas City, because Johnson County's taken a little bit of a slower approach and changed. They're kind of staying with the governor's timeline, where Wichita has sped it up. They haven't had any more cases, so they're already allowing rondos and different things to go, where Kansas City is social distancing. Now, kind of with that, we have public and private facilities here that are all dealing with how they're mandating COVID differently as well. So a public facility may not be open yet and have their rules all set up for when they get back to play, and teams are scrambling to find space to train within their county rules. And then we have other private facilities that have gone above and beyond even our own state recommendations on how they want to conduct business, because of the insurance and risk management that they have on their own side that we're doing. Now, as the state of Kansas, we did give guidelines and recommendations to all our clubs how they want to do it. We really did it in 4 kind of categories. We did it the club's responsibilities, we did it the coaches' responsibilities, we did the parents' responsibilities, and we did the player responsibilities. So if everybody takes those to heart and plays closely to our 4 categories, hopefully we'll get back to playing a little bit quicker. But just like everything, it's just kind of making sure that we get buy-in from everybody and make sure they're doing it, which makes it a little bit harder when everybody's comparing what people are doing in other counties. So,
Joe, real quick,
so
what direction is the state giving to the clubs? So, like, for instance, in Iowa, currently the state says, hey, you're not, we won't kind of basically insure you until July 6th. That's our return to play date. Being June 3rd, what is today? June 3rd? No, June 4th. So, where are you guys at as far as the return to play date or whatnot?
So we're playing around. I mean, our guys are practicing. We've done with our insurance, our secondary insurance, as long as they're filing their county guidelines where we can train. Now, we're not playing games. We're not sanctioning out-of-state travel. So Oklahoma is open, and there's a tournament coming up, I believe, next weekend. And there's some Wichita teams and stuff that want to go, but we're not letting people leave the state. So we're open for trainings at the different levels of the different counties, but we're not back to playing games. And that'll kind of happen. There's kind of 2 theories on what will happen. Either the governor or whatever will just jump over, or each county will just say, okay, we're open, let's go. Or there'll be another step between. There'll be phase 3 that we'll jump into, which some of the counties are already in, before we go to phase 4, before the total opening of the state. So we're training. To answer your question, we're training. We're obeying social distancing where we have to, and they're competing in some areas where they're allowed to do as they are saying they're in phase 3. So we're a little bit more all over the place than some of the other states. And trying to track it is a nightmare, but it's depending on the good people to make sure that they're listening, and we're encouraging all our clubs to make sure they're in contact with their local officials.
How are you guys handling tryouts? I know that was kind of a unique thing that we're having to deal with here. Tryouts you're talking about State Cup being right now in Kansas, but right now is generally tryout time for us.
So we kind of took a approach where we wanted to protect 3 entities: the players that liked where they were at, the players that wanted to move, and the clubs to continue to have a revenue stream to stay viable. So right now, as of June 1st, if you're playing for Joe Berger FC and you want to return to Joe Berger FC and you don't want to go to the open tryout,
is that a good club, Joe Berger FC? Are you guys any good? Or
Back in the day, we were pretty left-footed, and it just kind of happened, I think. But I don't know. I don't know what club to say. I guess I could say Soccer South.
No,
but
actually, I really like Joe
that's my
Berger
heart.
FC.
Yeah, JBFC. I mean, it just kind of rhymes. It just kind of flows
It's
off the
good.
tongue. So you can sign up with your current club and not have to go through the open tryout process and maintain the spots. Now, starting June 19th, you can go to your in-person tryouts, which per the timelines that we have, the state should be open, but you have to do some type of physical invitation if you want to go. Now, on the June 1st thing, you're kind of declaring that you're coming back to the club, or you're going to go attend tryouts with your club. So you can sign up for tryouts now and sign up and place a deposit to reserve your spot in your current club. Or you can say, hey, Joe Berger FC is going to Sam Holmes FC, and I'm saying, hey, I'm not sure I'm returning to Joe Berger FC. I'm going to go try out starting the 19th at Sam Holmes FC. So it's kind of if you like where you're at, you can stay and be committed and get your spot. But you can also, if you're looking for a change, you have the opportunity to do that and kind of declare that so the clubs can plan what they have to do for tryouts to hopefully not have 400 kids at a complex or a field going to tryouts to try to control the numbers a little bit.
Do you think, hey, Joe, do you think that, so if I say I currently play at Joe Berger FC and I say, hey, Joe Berger FC, I'm going to go try out at Sam Holmes FC.
Right.
Does that, I mean, that's going to upset Joe Berger FC, right? They're going to say, hey, so I guess what impact does that have on the kids / families when the club learns, oh, they're going to go try out over there? Just curious on your guys' thought process there, if at all.
Well, yeah, I think hopefully the clubs are doing a good job, and we're talking about very few kids that want to move. But I think it, just like youth soccer is a business, it's all going to come down to monies and cents, and people are going to try out at different places. They're not going to make places. I don't think people will turn away kids that are looking for a place to play. I think that's always kind of a thing. You hope it's not that way, but I think unfortunately, I think tryouts are sometimes a little free for all, and you get those inklings no matter what the system is, and hopefully everybody's being professional about it and saying, hey, listen, we understand, go see if it's greener over there, but you have a place here if you want it and you want to come back. So my goal is just to make sure that every kid has a place to play and that wants to play, and hopefully this will do it. But part of the concern that we heard from our club was we want to see if we can continue with our revenue stream. So if we can do that, that's why we set it up this way. And we're hoping that the majority of the clubs sign up with their own team, but we also wanted to protect the kids that were looking to move. And I think in some ways it could be pretty telling to a club of what kind of service they're providing. If you have 90% of return, you're doing a good job. And if it's less than that, what can you improve as a club to be a little bit more competitive? So, it'll be interesting to see the feedback that we get, if we would like to, and how our tryouts move forward in Kansas in the future. But hopefully we can get through this tryouts. And so far the coaches have been really good and really bought in and trying to make sure that they're being professional and conducting things, because I think everybody just really wants to get back to play. And they just, unfortunately, we're in this situation where, everybody's trying to run a business and form teams in a situation that's like we haven't had before.
So I think you guys are in a little different, unique situation in Kansas with sporting, having a professional club there, and kind of ODP and whatnot. So
Yep.
Just talk a little bit about ODP, because when we were, the best, I think it's fair to say the best kids maybe in Kansas are not playing ODP. They would be playing in the sporting's sporting system, maybe, if that's the best way to say it.
Yes. So we definitely have different pathways for our kids down here in Kansas. So having sporting here, they have kind of a pathway that sets you off into a different direction into the pro realm and into college identification on the guy side. We have a pretty big ECNL presence here at a pretty good level. We have the GA League. So our players get a little bit diluted a little bit because they have so many opportunities to do with what their club is. Now, part of my job is to continue working with Paul Fabry to how do we improve our ODP and attract, some of the better kids back to ODP by providing services and experiences and doing that. So we're looking at revamping our program a little bit. And trying to make sure that we're providing a quality product on the field and off the field that can do it. We're looking at implementing video into our ODP program. We're looking at helping them with their college recruiting, and giving them some experiences that maybe they couldn't have. I think Kansas in the past, with the group that I talked about, we made to the semifinals of the region in Kansas because this was kind of before sporting was there. But I think there's a lot of good players here that we can get back to the days where, we're being really competitive in the region. And just it's going to be talking to the clubs and saying, hey, we'd really like you to support this. This is what we're doing. This is how we'd like to create a better experience. But as you know, youth soccer has changed. The kids are doing so much now, where ODP used to be more of a supplemental kind of instruction type deal, where a lot of these kids maybe don't need it because they're being so active and traveling so much. When the break comes, they want to have the break. So how do we create a program that is giving them what they want, giving them the opportunities to be seen by college coaches and doing it? So to kind of answer your question, we're kind of in a rebuilding phase, trying to make sure that we are providing a good quality service and hopefully get the buy-in from our club coaches to promote it a little bit more in our area and give the kids a good feeling about our program. So
I think that's interesting. You bring up the point, especially with facilities down in Kansas City. You guys obviously have volume-wise quite a few facilities down there to train inside. But I think the club calendar or the club opportunities, like you said, with the ECNL route as well, there may be more of those than there are here. And then trying to find the balance of, hey, if the kids are playing in the club scene 10 months a year, how do you add ODP into that mix as well? I think that's just an interesting balance you gotta figure out.
Well, and taking about, we have one of the biggest leagues here. The Heartland Soccer League is pretty big, and we have the Wichita Soccer League, which is growing. So they have league games. Also, we have a big tournament provider. I mean, there's a tournament in Kansas City at least 2 or 3 weekends a month all the time. So the calendar gets pretty full, and it's finding those spots where we can do stuff and have events and service those kids the way they want to be serviced, with dealing with the calendar that's already being made. Because the opportunity to play soccer in Kansas City, there's abundance. It's not like there's chances to play all the time, and it's just finding our spot in the calendar to make sure that we can service it and give the kids the experience they want. Like I said, because you can play in a tournament or play a league game almost every weekend in Kansas City and in Kansas in general, even in Wichita. So
do you worry at all about kind of like you hear the argument sometimes that we're too organized and there's too much coaching and there, whatever. Do you think that it's over-programmed, or do you think that there's just the population is such that there's so many people that want so much to do that it's, there's no big deal?
Yes and yes. I mean, I think there's a little bit of both. It's keeping up with the Joneses a little bit. It's making sure that your kid is getting exposure and, if they're striving to play college soccer. But I do think with everything going on, there'll be a reset in priorities for families. And it'll be interesting to see like what happens. Well, maybe we don't want to travel so much, or, we got a good league. We're playing in a good league. Is that enough for some teams to do? So their kids now, enjoy vacations and different things. I think we just professionalized youth sports so much that it becomes hard for some of these other programs to get a foothold because of the money involved and the stuff that they're paying and the price of playing in some other programs. I think how do we balance all that? And some of that will be, I think that will be clubs are looking at that. I think families are looking at that and deciding what's more important to them. I think I think we're in an interesting time, but I think there's just so much opportunity. You can play soccer indoor, outdoor in Kansas City every night of the week if you want to. And it's just how you decide to balance that and what is your personal choice or your family's choice to participate in that kind of stuff.
Not to go off on a major tangent, but what do you guys do for adults? What, you've got all these opportunities to play. I think that's something, also that we miss here in Des Moines and Iowa in general is, the focus is almost entirely on the youth. And it seems like that after talking to Dan Cataldi the other day, adult soccer is a priority for them to sort of expand and increase the participation. But what's it like in Kansas?
So in Kansas, it's a little bit different. Our two groups are actually split. So adult soccer and youth soccer are two different organizations.
So you're only concentrating on youth.
I'm only concentrating on the youth.
Got it.
But, we have 4 or 5 old school indoor facilities with walls and stuff just for kicks, all American indoor sports, kind of the old days of the Comets and different things that you can play. Most of the clubs have some kind of rec men's league or something. There's a couple of Sporting runs a men's league, Rush run a men's league. There's some of these clubs out here that have pretty good men's leagues. So the adults have plenty of opportunity to play here where we're not struggling, and they have kind of their own facilities that they can get access to. There's not too many 11v11s going on. It's mostly small sided, but there's a lot of opportunity in Kansas for the adults to play. You can find one pretty easily.
Cool. What role items? What's the relationship like with Sporting, as far as the youth system? Are they viewed as a competitor? Are they viewed as an ally? I'm assuming both. I don't know.
Yeah, we have a relationship with them, and a lot of their teams support ODP and their affiliates support ODP and state cup. So I think they're an ally. I think they are trying to do what's right. We're trying to provide service. They provide services as well. So I think we have to look at it as kind of a partnership to make sure that we are providing services to people who want it in the way they want it. Some people prefer us, some people have allied with them. I think we're all kind of in the same page of growing soccer. So I would say it isn't contentious or anything. It's just trying to make sure that we're all providing a service and supporting each other. Really, I think that's got to be part of it, and making sure that we can serve everybody the way they want to be served, and give opportunities for kids that maybe not have some of those access, and some clubs that aren't are not looking to be associated with Sporting kind of be their own. So, I think we're not contentious, so we're just existing kind of together, and hopefully we can continue to provide services, and and where we can cross over, we'll support each other.
Go ahead, man. It looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah. Well, so now you've been in the job now for what, Joe? Like a few months?
2 months.
2 months. Okay.
2 months, starting my third. Yep.
Very good. So what are your kind of, like, as you go into this, what do you see as your biggest challenges? Blake and I were talking about this the other day. Like, for me, I do real estate. So like I have a certain set of challenges in my day-to-day business. And I bet you my challenges were a lot different in the first couple of months than they were, now when I've been in it for several years. So I would just be curious what you foresee as some of the short-term challenges, and then maybe some of the longer-term things you're going to address.
Yeah, good question. So like short term, I'm just trying to do my best to communicate with everybody. Like if they're calling me, I'm calling them back immediately. I'm trying to be clear and concise with my communication, trying to make sure if there's an issue that we can get to the bottom of and try to be on the front foot and not let things fester. Trying to make sure that, we're following the protocols the best that we can for our tryouts. That our players are protected and safe. I think, in the long term, we want to try to make sure that we're improving the competitive nature and the equality, and not having clubs look at each other as, well, they are competitors, but not as villains, as not allies. I don't know what the right word I'm looking for, but that the competition for everything is competitive and equal, so the choice goes to the players, and increasing the processes and making it equitable. So nobody says, well, they have an unfair advantage because they do this or they do that. How do we continue to move forward and structure where everybody thinks they're being treated fairly, and not looking to get an advantage? I know that'll be hard, and it'll be a monumental challenge. That's kind of the long term, but just trying to be that resource that can help solve problems, and maybe alleviate some of the stress going on in clubs' lives, and hopefully coming up with new solutions and new programming that makes people excited about being a member. I think that's what we want to try to get to, and everybody before us has done a great job. It's now, what can we do to get it to the next level and maximize the state? What can we do for referees? What can we do for the clubs? What can we do for our individual players with ODP? What other kind of player identification event can we create, to help get kids identified for college or for scouts? It's just kind of continuing to move forward. It's there's a lot to evaluate. So the short term, it's just making sure that, hey, people look at it and say, hey, Joe Berger's a soccer guy. He's got some things on his plate, but he's going to do his best to try to do what's right and make sure everybody is having the opportunities that they want. And then, hopefully becoming one of the model states for USYS. I mean, that's a big goal, and there's a lot of good states, but I don't think, just like anything, you don't take on a new job and say, hey, I want it to keep going as it is. So it's just trying to see if we can continue to improve, and it's just amazing talking with Casey Mann and Dan Cataldi and Nick. It's just amazing how many different issues each state has to deal with. So we're all kind of on our unique islands on trying to solve problems, because I don't have some of the issues that Nebraska has or Iowa has, and they have different issues than Kansas has. So, it's just trying to control what you can control, and hopefully continue to improve the member experience.
Well, it'll be interesting when we talk to Casey, and then to kind of compare the different conversations. Because I guess I just assumed that we would have a lot of the same challenges. So it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, well, it's all different. Like, Iowa doesn't have an MLS team, and, or have a bunch of different clubs, some clubs that aren't affiliated and affiliated clubs. And, I have to deal with the Missouri-Kansas border because they cross over and play leagues. Our governors are handling, and even our organizations are handling the epidemics differently. I just think it's just hard to compare state to state, because we're all dealing with so many different issues that like Dan is dealing with Iowa and Casey's dealing and Nick's dealing with in Missouri. And it's just one of those deals where, yeah, we're all kind of lumped in the same, but we're all very, very different with the challenges that we're dealing with.
So Joe, I don't know. I've got, this is my last one for you. Kind of get back on maybe a more positive note. We've talked a little bit about how, not to you, but Ben and I, we've talked about how coaches, they got to travel all over the place, kind of to keep moving up the ladder. And you've clearly, you've been all over, small towns, bigger communities. Give us, whether it's playing on the road or whatnot, give us like the best and worst environment you've coached at. Because I remember the old Swope Park before it used to be what it is now. That was not the best. The old Drake Tennis Center was not the best. Obviously, being up in South Dakota, I'm assuming you guys traveled to some crazy places, Baker, some crazy spots. So I don't know, kind of end us with the best and worst site or location you've coached at.
Man, that's hard. There's so many quality facilities and locations, but one of my favorite places to travel to was going to play Simon Fraser in Vancouver, British Columbia. To take a kids on an international experience, every year, because we played home and away for 2 years and go there. And Seattle Pacific was fantastic. On the D1, just, you're so lucky, like so many hard places to play, like Northwestern, the wind, it's always good playing at home, and everything has their own experience. But, I thought Drake had a special place at home at County, that with Joe Grandstaff and those guys, the way they took care of us and treated us was fantastic.
Well, okay, so give us your worst. Eastern Illinois could easily be up there.
Eastern Illinois was interesting. One of my buddies coaches there, so it was always fun in late games where if you were up big, you'd kick the ball into the lake, I guess. I forget what they call it, EIU Lake, right by the field.
Blake,
the worst place.
You definitely did that, didn't you?
Oh, we would. Yeah, they got that little pond right there, and it was a terrible field, and it seemed like the Sunday of a Sunday weekend. It's a Sunday afternoon after playing Friday night. You're on a small bus. Yeah, miserable. You've got a 10-hour drive back home, class the next morning. It was never exciting.
So the worst place I've ever played, we played at this small school called Tabor College, and their field was nice, but the visiting team had to warm up, and there was a cemetery right behind the field. So you're warming up, you're doing your shooting and balls. So to go get a ball, you had to go into the cemetery to get the ball after that, and balls are bouncing off headstones. And it was just one of the weirdest things, because, as a person, you go, man, this is a monument to somebody, but, they're put the soccer field right here, and people are bounding balls off headstones and monuments or knocking over flowers. It was just, I don't know. The field wasn't the worst, but it was kind of the most awkward place that you would go play a soccer game. It was just so unique.
Yeah, that sounds bizarre.
It was just, so you sit there and you go like, man, of all the places to put a soccer field, why here? And as the visiting team going to play, what does it do to your psyche right now? You're trying not to kick balls into the thing. Or, when I was a freshman and you'd be on the end of the bench and he would say, hey, Berger, go get that ball in the cemetery, you just kind of cringe. That's not a place I want to go. So,
what city and state is that in?
It's in Kansas. It's in Tabor, Kansas. Hillsboro. Sorry, I won't be able to say it. You got me all worked up. Hillsboro, Kansas, at Tabor College. Now, I'm sure they've moved the field now. That was in 1990. So but it was awkward. I mean, literally there was a Pizza Hut and a gas station in the town, because Pizza Hut's from Kansas, so every little town had a Pizza Hut, and away you go. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'd have to be probably Tabor.
Cool. I don't know, Ben. I don't have anything else. That was, like you said, it's interesting just hearing kind of the issues and the things different states offer.
Yeah, agreed. Joe, you want to give any shout outs quick before we let you roll?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of friends in Iowa, and it's good that hopefully when they come to Kansas City, they come down and hit me up, or I say hi when I see them at the field. And then, you always got to give a shout out to your mentors. I've been lucky. I got to work with Mike Brown, who's a superintendent of schools at Platte City. Obviously, Sean Holmes, John Leamy, Jim DeRose. I got to work around a lot of great people. So, I mean, I'm all kind of a product of them. I've taken a little bit from them, and hopefully, I got a lot of good friends in Kansas, old teammates, alumni of Drake that have reached out to me since I've been back in Kansas City. So I just feel fortunate that there's a lot of good people that are supporting me in my new role, and hopefully we can continue to make Kansas youth soccer a better place for everyone.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good luck.
No problem. Yeah, thank you guys. And if you guys ever come down here, hit me up. I'll take you to the good barbecue places.
We'll take you up on that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Take care and stay safe.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, Blake, that was fun as usual. I love putting another interview in the books, but then of course it's a special one because it's your boy Joe Berger, and he had some funny little Blake stories too. So
yeah, it was good chat, good reminiscing. Spending a year with Joe, and then obviously we saw each other often after I got done during his time here in Des Moines. It was good catching up.
Yeah, it seems like his interesting to just kind of hear the difference in the roles between kind of the conversation we had with Dan and the conversation we had with Joe. Sounds like he's got a big job ahead of him though.
Yeah, I think he kind of said that, right? But also, he sounded excited, and I don't know, it's a pretty cool opportunity. Kansas, I think, as we talked to with Dan, Kansas is a little further ahead than we are. So a little more advanced, obviously a much bigger population. And then I still think, some of the facilities they have down there are second to none and really cool.
Yeah, it definitely, we started off our conversation with a little weather discussion. But I think that's an interesting piece to it too. You're dealing with like it's 3 hours south, but it's just a totally different ecosystem.
I love that, Ben. I couldn't have said it better myself.
A little shout for Eduardo, who's also not listening at this point.
The mini pitch maestro.
Mini pitch maestro, exactly. Well, let's wrap it up because we know that nobody listens to the end anyways. Another shout out to Matt Ream, of course, because we know he's listening. What else you got, Siebes? Anything?
Yeah, if anybody is, let's obviously the social media plugs, but rate us, review us.
Make sure you subscribe, download, do all the things.
That's right. Subscribe. Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
We'll be back in a week. See you guys.